Good day. Thank you for tuning in to this 2019 primary election candidate forum for the Olympia City Council Position 2. The forum is presented by the League of Women Voters of Thurston County and Thurston Community Media. The League is a nonprofit organization that encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in their government. The League neither supports nor opposes candidates or parties, and we are nonpartisan. The League registers new voters, works to get out the vote, studies issues, and advocates for its positions with governing bodies. Despite its name, the League is open to both men and women age 16 and older. I'm Elliot Weinstein from the League, and I'll be moderating this forum. The candidates for Olympia City Council position are Jessica Bateman, Phyllis Booth, and Alyssa Humbert. For this forum, each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Then I'll ask questions in alternating order. The person first asked the question will have 2 minutes for a response, followed by 1 minute from the other candidates. There will be 1 minute for closing statements at the end. We'll begin with opening statements from the candidates. We will begin with Jessica Bateman, followed by Phyllis Booth, and last, Alyssa Humbert.
Hi, my name is Jessica Bateman, Mayor Pro Tem for the City of Olympia. I'm running for re-election because we have more work to do, and I have the experience, policy skills, and approach needed to move Olympia forward. It's been an honor to serve as your council member for the last 3.5 years, and I am excited and eager to continue that service. From organizing home care workers, to empowering at-risk youth, to leading the campaign to pass the Home Fund, I have experience building broad coalitions to improve the lives of people in Olympia. I'm the daughter of working family parents, and the first in my family to graduate from college, and was raised by my single mom. I graduated with my master's in public administration from the Evergreen State College, and before serving on the Olympia City Council, I worked as an organizer for SEIU 775, as a legislative assistant to former state representative Chris Rakedahl, and as the community impact director for the United Way of Thurston County. I also served on the board of GRUB and on the Olympia Planning Commission for over 2.5 years. I am excited to move forward in the City of Olympia, and I thank you for your time.
The next candidate to respond is Phyllis Booth.
Hi, my name is Phyllis Booth, and I am also excited about this opportunity to hopefully get elected and serve you. I have fought for democracy all of my life. Early in my life, I adopted simple living as a way to volunteer. So I have 30+ years in volunteer work. I have worked for groups like the Carnegie Group, Public Funds for Public Purposes, the local hospice. I've served social justice and homeless organizations. I was in the groundbreaking of Camp Quixote for 6 years and doing a lot of the work that most people don't want to do. I've served as legislative district Democratic chair in 2018, and I have done a lot of church work in 2 Methodist churches from Olympia to Centralia. In the Methodist Church in Centralia, that is one of the few churches that welcomes the LGBTQ community. And my husband and I were recently awarded a Tiny Home House Award with Quixote Village Work. I've worked in schools for 12 years, and I recently have been working against the missing middle, which is pulling the rug out of the real estate market for our neighborhoods.
The next candidate to give an opening statement will be Alyssa Humbert.
Hi, my name is Alyssa Humbert, and I'm running for Olympia City Council Position 2. My inspiration for running is my son. I have a young son, he's not quite 2 years old, and I want to do my part to make sure that Olympia is safe, inclusive, and sustainable, so that he can grow up to love Olympia just as much as I do. I have previously worked in the public education with special education students in predominantly Hispanic communities. I also managed a children's literacy nonprofit where I became well versed in coming up with creative solutions on a budget or with no budget at all. The communities that we served were immigrant refugee communities and communities of low income. I currently serve on the board of the Family Support Center of South Sound, which operates the largest family homeless shelter in Thurston County and provides services for victims of domestic violence. I also serve on the board of my local neighborhood association, and I volunteer with Washington Trails Association, maintaining trails locally here in Olympia, as well as the broader Washington state, and promoting conservation and stewardship of our public greens and lands. I am interested in making sure that Olympia's City Council is diverse and listens to all voices. Thank you.
We will now proceed to the next question, and we will start with Candidate Booth. How do you propose to fulfill the city's goals for a safer, cleaner, and more welcoming downtown?
This has been an issue ever since I've been in town. We've tried to do various things with the Olympia Downtown Association. We've had police patrols and that sort of thing. And what's happening in America is that more and more people are being priced out of housing, and there is no place for them to go. Real estate has become a commodity. In fact, in 2016, according to this book, Capital City, absentee investors have taken up the housing for 37% of the home sales in that year alone. So a lot of people are being priced out and coming downtown for services that are overwhelmed. So I believe that we need to have better understanding of what's going on across the country. With the Olympia City Council, I've gone to some of their forums for homelessness, and I rarely have seen homeless people actually interviewed or brought to the table. When I'm council member, we are going to bring everyone to the table and solve problems using the wealth of citizen talent that our area has to offer. The City Council has spent 17 months with the missing middle, and our group, just to be heard, we had to go before a hearing examiner that said we have no standing for 43 massive zoning changes. So now we are subject to having our neighborhoods invaded by absentee investors who can control the whole area. So I want to create a stable Olympia by having stable neighborhoods.
We will now direct the question to Candidate Humbert. And would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Happy to. How do you propose to fulfill the city's goals for a safer, cleaner, and more welcoming downtown?
So there are so many ways. There's so many things to answer this question, and one of the things that I would like to put in place is an Office of Civil Rights where people can, and this would mimic the one in Seattle, where people can call a hotline and file a claim without repercussion, that the city would have professionals in place to investigate these claims and hold a hearing so that all parties involved can come to a resolution. And this is civil rights for all people. These are minorities, women, the disabled communities, everyone who has a voice in this community. I also would love to see, I've worked on the parks in our neighborhood. What if we, had volunteer groups working downtown? I mean, just as, I've worked on trails on Priest Point, why not have the same kinds of groups?
Candidate Bateman, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. Well, first, I'd just like to say that all Olympians deserve a safe, welcoming, and clean downtown. Thanks to our public safety measure in 2016, we've expanded our downtown walking patrol. We've also created a crisis response unit, so mental health professionals now go out and are diverted to calls where someone's experiencing a mental health crisis. We've also supported and created our Familiar Faces program, where individuals with lived experience with substance use disorder are going out and making proactive relationships with individuals that are unhoused and frequent utilizers of public services. We've also expanded our community courts program to divert people out of the criminal justice system. We've also brought our ambassadors in-house to give them living wages and our clean team. And moving forward, I think that we can continue those programs. Some of those, the Familiar Faces and crisis response, are brand new. They just got implemented. There's also an interest in a property tax assessment district, so we can actually bring more revenue into the city to focus on maintaining clean and safe streets in Olympia.
Thank you. We will now proceed to the second question, and candidate Humbert will be the first person asked the question. The lot plant serves most of the people in this area. However, it is located in an earthquake hazard and flood area, which expects sea level rise conditions. How would you work as part of the lot partnership to meet future community needs under these conditions? You'll have 2 minutes to answer.
I know that many of us in the community are worried about natural disasters, whether it be the sea level rising, earthquakes, or fire hazards, or an eruption. And yes, the Lots Center downtown is in an area where we are seeing the sea level rise. This is we really need to have an immediate response to what's happening in our climate, and that would mean making sure that there are incentives in place for people to make choices that are environmentally friendly, such as purchasing electric cars and updating their homes and our public buildings so that they're environmentally friendly. We all need to be doing our part to make sure that we keep our environment safe and sustainable, and that especially means the businesses and especially corporations need to be doing their part to make sure that we're addressing these climate issues. As far as the Lot Center downtown, I do enjoy visiting the Wet Science Center with my son, and so we are familiar with that plant downtown. And there's a lot of things that we can do to retrofit the building to make sure that it's earthquake friendly. But we need to be all working together to make sure that we're addressing, the lake's sustainability, the dam, and making sure that there's room for everyone downtown, and that means addressing the climate issues by penalizing, those who are polluting our area and making sure that our buildings are sustainable.
Thank you. Candidate Bateman, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Well, first, Olympia is very concerned with environmental protections. We've adopted ambitious greenhouse gas emission reduction targets, and we also have adopted a sea level rise response plan. We're creating currently a plan for how we're going to achieve our carbon reductions targets. We are working with our local partners, both Tumwater, Lacey, Thurston County, and Lot, to implement our sea level rise response plan, because as Alicia Humbert said earlier, we are still very vulnerable to sea level rise, even if we do reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. So we need to create a governance structure for actually how we're going to implement that plan, so we can figure out how we're going to pay for all of the recommendations in the plan so we can adapt to sea level rise for our Lot Wastewater Treatment Center. We also participate in regional and with our federal government and state partners for disaster planning, and I know that our Lot Wastewater Treatment Center is a part of that planning process as well.
Thank you. Candidate Booth, would you like me to repeat the question?
Thank you.
Okay.
I believe Lacey has already implemented a plan by having some satellite plans to move some lot operations in their city. Also, the National Oceanic Atmosphere Association said that by the end of this century, we are planning for 8 feet of sea level rise, which is much greater than the current Olympia City Council is prepared for. I also think that we need to realize that this is a long-term goal, because Lot is a $1 billion plant, and so we can't take this lightly. We have to financially prepare for the infrastructure that will be affected when this happens.
Thank you. We will move on to the next question. Candidate Bateman will be asked the question first. What are the land use and development challenges and opportunities that Olympia faces? And then this has a second part. What opportunities would you like to see come to life in the next decade, and how will you fund them?
What are the opportunities for land use?
Let me repeat that. What are the land use and development challenges and opportunities?
Oh, got it. Okay. So, thank you. We have a number of land use challenges, mainly the largest being accommodating population growth. We know that over the next 20 years, we're going to have 20,000 people come to Olympia and make their home here. We have goals for a quarter of those individuals living in our downtown, and we don't have new buildable land and new buildable space. So it's really about prioritizing what opportunities we have in our downtown. We have a number of city-owned properties. I would really like to see those city-owned parking lots be utilized for housing. It's one way that we can actually impact affordable housing, by offering those up as an opportunity for a proposal from a developer to create affordable housing, like we did with the Home Fund. We can consider transportation elements to our downtown. We need to have a lot of density to accommodate multimodal transportation, and we think about land use planning. If we want to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions over the long run, we have to have enough density to accommodate that, which also means having density in our neighborhood centers and our neighborhood villages, which I think is another really great opportunity as we plan for the future now.
Thank you. We will ask the same question of Candidate Booth. Would you like me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
Happy to. What are the land use and development challenges and opportunities that Olympia faces? What opportunities would you like to see come to life in the next decade? And how will you fund them?
Well, first of all, I think we have already addressed that issue in the 2014 Comprehensive Plan, where we planned for 20 years of growth directed in the nodes. There's 3 nodes, and that is where residents are best served who need busing transportation every 15 minutes. With the missing middle ordinance, we have basically violated the comprehensive plan by increasing density. Now you can have 36 units per acre, and that's about 3 times as much as we expected. And the infrastructure cannot sustain that without rises in property taxes and a degradation of our life in Olympia. I think that we need to be more democratic in how we plan for our land use zoning.
I will now pose this question to Candidate Humbert. Would you like me to repeat it?
That's not necessary.
Okay.
Thank you. So I'm very aware that housing is needed in Olympia, and affordable housing is something that I am committed to seeing the city enact. Having said that, I'm also interested in maintaining our green spaces and public spaces so that all of us can enjoy beautiful Olympia. To do that, I envision housing and density along transportation lines and hubs, and that's something to get excited about, where we have a city that encourages public transportation and bicycling and walking. To build affordable houses, I think we need to incentivize developers by offering tax abatements where for a certain number of years they do not have to pay taxes, but to get that, they have to build affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to the last question. And the first person to be asked this question will be Candidate Booth. What is your view about the adequacy of the water supply for Olympia today and for the next several decades? And what steps are needed next?
I have consulted with former Mayor Bob Jacobs about this issue, and he said that we have plenty of water for the next decades. I do think that we need to be concerned about the chemicals going into the water supply. Around East Bay, in the south part, there is dioxin in the mud, and we need to put fencing around that area. Regardless of who gets elected for this position, we need signage. It's dangerous. It's right near the Children's Museum. And we need to make sure that when we develop properties that we are respecting nature. Westman Mills was put in, and it's right near the East Bay area, and it covers an estuary. And estuaries are where our food for fish is produced. And without that, whales like orcas die. So we need to have a scientist advising the city or citizen talent of scientists coming in and advising, and they need to take science seriously. We are planning for development as if nature has no processes. So views are important, but we need to have our salmon runs, and we don't need all these culverts that are functioning as streams and interfering with the production of fish food. Thank you.
Thank you. The next candidate to respond to this question will be Candidate Humbert. Would you like me to repeat it?
That's not necessary, thank you.
Great.
So I envision the lake being cleaned up, and that would mean removing the dam. I mean, we are surrounded by water, but we need our water to be clean. I attended a workshop by the Conservation District where they taught us how to use rain barrels, and they gave out rain barrels, and I have one in my backyard, and I encourage everyone to look into what the Conservation District offers and rain barrels. We can all do our part. We live in a beautiful area. I agree with Phyllis Booth that when we talk about housing, we need to consider our green spaces and our environment, and doing our part. And clean water is something that we have, and we're very fortunate to have it, and we need to be protecting it. Thank you.
Thank you. We will have a candidate.
Okay.
She knows the question. Okay.
Thank you. All of our reports indicate that our drinking water supply is good for the foreseeable future. I do think as we move forward, we need to be aware of climate change and how that will impact us, especially as it relates to water conservation efforts and making sure that we're utilizing water such as gray water, which we currently do in the city, and also with the landscaping that we have throughout the city in our parks. I know for myself as an individual who loves gardening, I think it's smart of us to be thinking about utilizing plants that are actually going to be drought resistant as we move into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll end with closing statements from the candidates, beginning with Candidate Humbert, followed by Candidate Bateman, and then by Candidate Booth. Please proceed with your closing statements.
My name is Alyssa Humbert. I'm running for Olympia City Council Position 2, and I'm just an average citizen. I'm a mother with a young son. I'm your neighbor, and I'm just doing my part because I have this urge to seek justice. I'm done waiting for justice to fall into our laps, and so I'm doing my part. And like I've mentioned, my son is my inspiration, but I've been talking to neighbors, and they are inspiring me too. I've been listening to different groups. You can find me all over the city breastfeeding my son, and I'm listening, and that's what I want to do as a member of City Council. I would love to see our City Council reflect all faces and voices in our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We will now move on to Candidate Bateman.
Thank you. As we move forward in Olympia's future, we must create more affordable housing. We also need to reduce the number of individuals that are falling into housing. We also need to reduce our carbon impact, and we need to increase the vitality of downtown. And I have the experience, policy skills, and approach needed to move Olympia forward. I've been endorsed by Congressman Denny Heck, Representatives Lori Dolan and Beth Dolio, Senator Sam Hunt, the Washington Federation of State Employees, WFC 443, UFCW 21, the Sierra Club of South Sound, Thurston Environmental Voters, and SEIU 775. If you'd like to learn more about me, please visit my website at reelectjessicabateman.com. I look forward to hearing from you, and I hope to earn your vote.
Candidate Booth, will you close the session out for us, please?
Yes. On City Council, you're going to need a person who's going to vote for the public good. This past legislative session, I fought against Bill 1923, which is really missing middle on steroids. And before that, I was involved in educating all over Olympia about the devastating effects the missing middle will have on our neighborhoods and the fact that the missing middle provides no affordable housing. The other thing you will need is a vote against tax breaks for luxury home builders. One of the reasons we don't have affordable housing is it has been eroded over the years through the removal of mobile home parks and not planning for poor people, because wages have stagnated for 40 years. That ought to be in the equation. And you can count on me with my years of experience with homelessness work in all levels to defend the vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you for participating in the League of Women Voters primary election forum for the Olympia City Council Position 2. We encourage viewers to vote in the primary election August 6th, 2019. Remember, ballots are postage free, so just put them in the mail. The League particularly thanks Thurston Community Media for their ongoing support and assistance. Have a nice day.